Now, we've heard from experts of the many drivers of the crisis, and they include climate change, pollution, but also importantly, poor water management. Let's discuss this even further now with water expert Anthony Turton. Anthony, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time this morning. And when we talk about water management in South Africa, could that be one of the important reasons behind why there's such water scarcity in the country?
Yes, good morning to you and the listeners. Water management, in my view, is probably the single most important issue in our crisis at the moment. You must remember that South Africa has always been a water-constrained country, and that's the very reason why we have government departments like Water Affairs and Sanitation. And the whole idea of this is that infrastructure must be there, put in place to buffer South Africa, the South African economy and the people of South Africa from the vagaries of nature. And you must also remember that we have some very serious structural issues in South Africa, in the sense that about 60% of the economy comes from the Gauteng area, and the Gauteng area is nowhere near any major river, lake or water body. So all the water there has to be pumped uphill over mountains using surplus energy available on our national electricity grid. And for just by saying those words, immediately you'll start realizing how precarious it is. So yes, we've always been water constrained, and there's always been significant infrastructure that's been put in place in order to buffer us. And that infrastructure needs planning, needs foresight, it needs maintenance, and very often 20-year planning time horizon. You've got to think 20 years in the future about what is needed.
So in your opinion, where is the Water and Sanitation Department, including our municipalities, getting it wrong when it comes to water management?
I think part of it is all to do with the transformation of South Africa into a democracy. We must never lose sight of the fact that that was quite a traumatic experience, even though it was reasonably peaceful the way it was rolled out in the end. But the way our modern democratic constitution is structured, we have some structural problems in that from the water sector perspective, in the sense that the water responsibility for the resource, for the water in the rivers and dams, is that of national government. But the water service provision, in other words, the water in pipes coming out into the house, into the garden, into the factory, is the responsibility of the municipality. And just recently, the Minister of Water Affairs, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, made a statement that something like 92% of your municipalities do not have the capacity to do the planning, to do the forecasting, to do the infrastructure upgrade required. So it's really at the very bottom of the rung, the municipalities. That's where we are having our significant failings.
Yeah, so when we see the Nelson Mandela Bay, for example, Anthony, and the likes of, Kobek as well, we're talking about day zero there, water scarcity, shortages at all-time record lows. How long do you think it would take then for the municipality to recover? And is it even possible at this stage to do it in the time that would meet the needs of the residents? Because they've been without water for months now. What would it take then for them to recover water?
Well, yes, there are a couple of questions there that you've asked. So the first thing is that we must remember that the Nelson Mandela Bay area is the end of a very sophisticated interbasin transfer. In fact, one of the first interbasin transfers that was ever developed in South Africa, from the Garib Dam through the Fish River, Sundays River, into the Gamtoos, eventually on into Nelson Mandela Bay. That was developed in the 1960s, and it was first conceived in the 1850s. So it took 100 years from conception for that to be built, and then it took a relatively short time to build, about a decade to build. And but at this moment in time, the Garib Dam is 100% full. I was there about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was 107% full at that point in time. So it's very full. So there's a problem there in terms of infrastructure. Why has that infrastructure simply not been maintained? Why has it not been upgraded? Then the second part of your question is, can they recover? Well, I can't see them recovering in the short term, because you must remember that the Nelson Mandela Bay area is a highly industrialized local economy. It produces motor cars, high-value motor cars for export, and we think only of the water that we drink, but it's really the water that sustains our economy that's important. And I cannot see that the local economy does not take a serious hit, particularly in terms of loss of investor confidence. And that confidence is of great significance in terms of recovery after this crisis.
All right, we'll leave it there due to time, but I appreciate you speaking to us. Anthony, water expert at the University of Free State Centre for Environmental Management, Professor Anthony Turton, joining us this morning.